Paul, first of all, welcome to Letterkenny Rugby Club. You come with a very impressive CV with your time with Lima Valley, Strabane and more recently City of Derry. What was the attraction of Letterkenny Rugby Club for you?
I think it's trying to grow something. There's always been a huge potential in the Letterkenny area. They have the facilities. There's a real forward-thinking committee in place, and that was basically that challenge ahead, and trying to engage with a massive talent pool and trying to take Letterkenny to the next level.
Letterkenny have had their ups and downs over the years, very successful, then very unsuccessful. Obviously there's a reason for that happening, Paul. Have you been able to identify why that's been the case?
It probably is the lack of depth. I think within the club, something that we really want to put a real lot of time and effort in is that transition between the youth and the senior rugby. There's an absolute necessity, and I've already hammered it behind the scenes that we're going to have a development team up and running this year. Some people would have traditionally called that the seconds. I call it the development team, because we're looking at getting guys in from youth rugby and develop them to get them ready for senior rugby. We're also looking at guys maybe from a Gaelic background or any other sports, to be honest, that are willing to come down and basically give them all the tools to engage and to make successful rugby players. There's longer term aims regards to growing a third team. I will have as many rugby teams as I can possibly have around a club, to be honest, but we've got to have the depth to get us through a year. If we don't have, realistically, on a weekly basis in your development team, you should have 7 or 8 firsts in it as a minimum, or guys that can play that level, and the rest of the guys are working towards that level. So we've got to have that squad. Rugby is such a physical sport. You're going to pick up injuries. There's going to be guys unavailable for one reason or another. You miss 2-3 crucial players, you drop a few points here or there, and you're out of league contention. So we've got to have the depth to manage that through the course of the season. Yeah,
it's interesting you've identified that, because having watched the club over the years, it's always been an issue really that the numbers haven't been big enough. If everybody's fit and available, Letterkenny very competitive. If they got 2 or 3 or 4 injuries particularly, they just didn't have the replacements to come in, and indeed on occasions didn't have the numbers to come in, Paul.
No, it doesn't. It's nothing rocket science. We've got to create that depth and take all the barriers out, and that's what we've been looking at as to how we find solutions to any problems within the club. I know the club have already, the likes of travel and had historically been a bit of an issue for guys and hopping on cars. There's now a bus provided every Saturday for the boys. That's a massive thing for the club to be buying into, to make sure that the guys are catered for. It's up to ourselves to really create that depth from our recruitment and transition. If we don't have it within the club, we'll have to look around the other clubs and see who we can attract in. But to be honest, with the facilities that are here and what's going to be put in place, the club are providing basically what you provide at top junior or even bottom end AIL status. So there should be players attracted plenty to this setup.
And Letterkenny have produced some excellent players who've gone on to play at a very high level. So obviously a lot of the structures that you're talking about are there, maybe just to be refreshed again perhaps?
100%. There's absolutely fantastic, phenomenal money and youth setup within the club. It's just getting it out right at the top end and seeing that, as you say, they've created hand over fist players that have played at Ireland League level all around the country. So we want to give those opportunities now to those players within their own home club, and we want Letterkenny to be that shining beacon throughout the county of Donegal and North West, to be honest, as well. We'll pick and choose our battles as we go, but we want to make sure that we're at the top end, and players want to aspire to be here, that we're not hemorrhaging the talent as was done in the past. I've just seen, it's nice to see Ben Scott arriving out there tonight. We want to get the best local talent playing rugby at Letterkenny, simple as that.
Yeah, because rightly or wrongly, or fairly or unfairly, what happens with the first team has a massive knock-on effect with the rest of the club then, Paul.
It's the feel-good factor. The pinnacle of your club is your first team, whatever sport you're playing in. We want to create that the whole way through, but if your first team aren't ticking, then it impacts onto your seconds or thirds. It's just a spiral effect. The numbers drop in training, so we've got to make sure that we keep that positive mentality around the club.
And what you've seen so far, I know you've talked to the committee and been impressed with the attitude they brought from the players. What sort of response? I know it's early days yet, Paul, but obviously sometimes they can be a wee bit suspicious of a new coach coming in.
I'm fairly, I would like to think I'm fairly player based, so I've spoke with a lot of guys individually over the past week. I've done a lot of phone calling. I think I messaged around 60 guys the other day, trying to re-engage with guys that have walked away from the club for one reason or another, and I'll get through literally everybody. We want to throw the door open to anybody that wants to play rugby at Letterkenny Rugby Club. As I say, it's great to see a few new faces down there tonight again, and that's what we hope to do, is create as many opportunities for guys to play rugby as possible.
Yeah. Does club rugby really to reinvent itself now? There's a lot of emphasis on obviously the higher level, the international, the interprovincial teams, the Pro 14 and all that sort of thing. Has club rugby lost out of it because of all that, Paul?
I think it's probably club to club you take that. I think the key denominator in everything is making sure that every player and every person involved in the club feels their value, regardless of what side they play for, is really immaterial. That'll look after itself through selection and basically their talent, or their, as I say, their level will be found, but it's making sure that they're provided for, that they have a coaching set up, that they have structures in place to support them on their rugby journey, and everyone feels a real part of the club basically.